Good morning.
Good morning. Your mic's not on.
Welcome to Unitarian Universalist Church in Idaho Falls. I am Annette Lovell. I am your worship associate today. Kind of a small group. But we're bringing our service today with the Reverend Kevin Carson, our minister, and Vic Allen, our media tech. I would like for everyone to notice the words on the back of your order of service this morning. Our UUCIF mission statement is the best welcome that I wanted to share today. And I want to read it out loud to remind us why we choose to be here on Sunday mornings and why we support this church. We honor the individual's right to religious and spiritual freedom. Minister to each other and the community at large. Nurture the search for truth and meaning. Be a loving and intergenerational community welcoming to all beliefs, races, sexual orientations, ethnicities, and gender identities. And improve the quality of life by living our values and working for local and universal justice. These are all things we strive to do. These are things, core values, that we agree with. Some of those we struggle with because they don't come in. We need the intergenerational, we need more diversity, but at least we're welcoming and we'll be here when people will walk through that door. So, anyway, we would like to start our time together with a few announcements. First of all, if you are joining us online, please sign into the chat box so we can see who's with us. And if you have a joining concern, please put it in the chat box and we can grab it from there. For those here in the sanctuary, our joys and concerns slips are in the back of the sanctuary. You can write those down and we will share them later in the service. Next Sunday is our second Sunday shared meal, so please plan on staying after the service. Bring a dish to share if you are able, and we will hold the potluck downstairs after the service. The latest book discussion is in the reading phase. So the book is Sacred Nature, Restoring Our Ancient Bond with the Natural World by Karen Armstrong. The meeting date for the discussion itself will be held sometime the end of December. So if you're interested, pick up your book, get reading now so that you can participate in that when the date is announced. You haven't got that quite ready yet. Oh, you do?
January 14th, I think.
Oh, January 14th. Okay, so we do have a date. We do have a couple more weeks to read over the holidays, too. Women's group is meeting this Friday. That is December 6th at Cindy Logan's home at 5:30. Bring a dish to share or some beverages and your best questions and conversation. And lastly, today after the service, we're going to be hanging the greens. We're going to be doing some decorating here in the sanctuary. There's a few other places throughout the church that it's already been done, but many hands make light work, so if you can help with that, please do so. That's the end of our announcements, so now let's take a moment, rise, let's greet our neighbor, say hello, and I will bring you back with the sound of a chime.
Hello, neighbor. Good to see you. Oh, pretty good. Pretty good for a guy with one shoulder that works. Good, good.
Thanksgiving.
Did you overeat?
Give it a make a real.
And she's happy.
Good morning.
I keep getting the shot over and over.
You're right. Good morning. Good to see you.
I printed out
Oh, thank you.
it's gonna look a little funky because it hasn't been edited, it just came right out of the software. It's better than nothing.
Well, so are you guys.
So we have welcomed and greeted, so now let us prepare for worship. We're going to take a few moments to settle in, calm our minds and our breathing. Let us breathe together deeply, listening to our inner selves, listening to one another, and I will ring the peace bowl 3 times. Start with our praises. So like our mission statement, our covenant helps put into words the feel and ideas of how we want to live our daily lives. It is a reminder of our agreement of how we are to treat one another and ourselves. So please recite with me this congregation's covenant, and then we will light our chalice. So love is the spirit of this community, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. For our chalice lighting, amidst the swirl of life's challenges, fears, and even moments of crisis, I make time to gaze at the night sky to see the vastness there, and to remember that this moment in time is but a flicker. Not an inconsequential flicker, for what I do and think now does matter. My work, though, is to let the debris of this world pass by while I anchor myself to what I know is true. Love, kindness, compassion, and caring for this precious life, this precious planet, and all that call this place home. This is my North Star. With love as my guide, how can I possibly go wrong?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Our call to worship this morning is the poem Making the House Ready for the Lord by Mary Oliver. Dear Lord, I have swept and I have washed, but still nothing is as shining as it should be. For you, under the sink, for example, is an uproar of mice. It is a season of the many children. What shall I do? And under the eaves and through the walls, the squirrels have gnawed their ragged entrances, but it is the season when they need shelter. So what shall I do? And the raccoon limps into the kitchen and opens the cupboard, while the dog snores, the cat hugs the pillow. What shall I do? Beautiful is the snow falling in the yard, and the fox who is staring boldly up the path to the door. And still I believe you will come, Lord. You will. When I speak to the fox, the sparrow, the lost dog, the shivering sea goose, know that I am really speaking to you whenever I say, as I do all morning and afternoon, come in, come in. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 226, People Look East.
May morning. Today I have a story about the rabbit and how he lost his long tail. It's an Abenaki legend, so there's going to be snow. A long time ago, they say, Rabbit was one of the fastest runners in the forest, and he also had a long, beautiful tail. But Rabbit loved one thing more than anything else. He loved to run around and play in the snow. Now on this particular day, the snow had not yet fallen, and Rabbit was disappointed. Then, Rabbit got an idea. He went to his grandmother. He said, "Grandmother, there's no snow, and I want to run around in the snow. What shall I do?" And Grandmother told him, Rabbit, sometimes if you want to make something happen, you sing a song and dance to it, and it will happen for you." Well, Rabbit thought that was a great idea. So he made up a little song and began to dance in a circle singing like this. "If only it would snow, if only it would snow, then I could run around and play, if only it would snow." And sure enough, snow began to fall. And before long, there was enough snow that he could see his footprints going in a big circle, and he was very pleased. Then he thought to himself, if a little snow is good, more snow would be better. So once again, he began to sing and dance in a circle. He sang, "If only it would snow, if only it would snow, then I could run around and play, if only it would snow." And indeed, more snow fell. It began to fall even harder with bigger flakes, and soon the whole ground was covered deep in snow. But as Rabbit looked around, he said to himself, if a little more snow is better, then a lot more snow would be better still. So once again, he began to sing and dance in a circle. He sang, "If only it would snow, if only it would snow, then I could run around and play, if only it would snow." Now, huge snowflakes, the size of feathers, began to fall to the ground. The snow covered up the bushes, but Rabbit kept singing. The snow covered up the bottoms of the trees, but Rabbit still kept singing. He looked around and said, if a lot more snow is good, then even more snow would be even better. So he began again to sing and dance. He sang, you can join me if you know the words. If only it would snow, if only it would snow, then I could run around and play, if only it would snow. Well, by now, the smaller trees were covered. And soon the bigger trees were covered. And finally, every tree in the forest was covered with snow. In fact, all you could see sticking up from the top of that snow was the tip top of the very tallest tree. Big tree. And that is when Rabbit decided he had done enough. In fact, he was feeling a little tired. He looked around and he said, "Wow, I did a really good job. There is snow everywhere. But now I think I'm going to go home and take my home." Indeed, where was Rabbit's home? It was buried deep beneath all that snow. And Rabbit was feeling really tired. But when he looked around, what did he see at the top of that one tallest tree? The fork of that tree that was sticking up above the snow. So he climbed into the fork of that tree, curled up, wrapped his long, beautiful tail around himself, and fell asleep. He slept for a long time. In fact, he slept until the time of year when the snow begins to disappear. The sun shone, and it did just that. It began to melt the snow away, down from the tops of trees, down from the middle of the trees, down below the bushes, and soon all the snow was gone. And Rabbit was still asleep at the top of that tallest tree. Well, before long he woke up and stretched and said, "Oh, that was really good. Now I think, uh-oh. He looked around and he realized he was in the top of a tree. And back then, even as that today, rabbits do not know how to climb trees or climb down trees. He was stuck up there and unsure about what to do next. He thought, oh, maybe I could sing and dance in a circle, but not in this small space. He could not make it snow again with his song and dance. What on earth would he do? He leaned and leaned further down, looking out to the base of that tallest tree, and way down below, he saw a little green plant growing, and it looked delicious. Rabbits like to eat green plants, and he thought, oh, I'm so hungry. If only I could reach that plant I found down there. He leaned a little further. In fact, he leaned too far and began to fall. And as he fell, he bounced off one branch and then another branch, and each time he bounced off a branch, a little piece of his tail came free and stuck there. And when he hit the ground, he hit it so hard that his long front legs got all pushed in, so now, instead of running swiftly, he had to hop. And when he looked up into that tree, he saw all those pieces of his tail. And he looked back at himself, and all he had left was a little round puffy tail, where once that long, beautiful tail had been. And so it is, to this day, that rabbit has a short tail. Indeed, in the springtime, if you look up into certain trees, some say the pussy willows, others say the cottonwood trees, you can see those fluffs left from Rabbit's tail stuck up there when long ago Rabbit made it snow more than he needed to. And we'll now sing out the children. As we leave this friendly place, love will light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return.
Well, it's time to share our joys and concerns this morning. So going first of all, Vic, is there anything in our chat box?
No.
Okay. I need a candle for Judy. She just says all emotions are on edge these days. Let's all find some joy.
Yes.
I agree. I don't have a name, but it says we have homemade lemon muffins for coffee hour. Hooray! But it's anonymous.
Okay.
We'll enjoy them. Oh, we have all joys. This is lovely. Victoria says, being with Cindy Logan to decorate the church. Today we will bring the tree upstairs and decorate it. It was a joy working with you. From Victoria.
Started yesterday.
And Victoria also says, my new dog Annie tore her claw and dripped blood throughout the house, but hydrogen peroxide raised the blood spots. Good to have those.
Eloise household hints.
Yes. Yeah, a lot cheaper than replacing flooring. Kat has a joy. She got to spend 4 days with her son and his family, but cried when they left. It was the best Thanksgiving. And Cindy, also a joy, Siren had a beautiful, healthy baby girl November 13th. Wish her well. And we will light one more candle for all the joys, concerns, and sorrows that we choose not to share at this time.
Our reading this morning is from a book that I recommend if you haven't read it already, called Christ for Unitarian Universalists by Scotty McLennan. Jesus' birth was not celebrated in the early years of the Christian church. Birthday celebrations were considered objectionable. Origen, for the most influential theologian of the early church, writes in the 3rd century CE that only negative characters in the Bible, like the Pharaoh of Egypt and Herod, the vassal king of the Romans, celebrated their birthdays. He states that birthday commemoration was a pagan custom not to be indulged by Christians. Anyway, no one knew on what date or even what time of year Jesus had been born. By the 4th century, however, the people began to feel a need to celebrate Jesus' birthday, and dates in the spring were proposed, likely because it was the season of rebirth in nature. Also, biblical evidence made it improbable that Jesus could have been born in the winter, since the nativity account in Luke describes the shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. That happened only from mid-March until mid-November, because sheep were never kept out overnight during the winter months. By the 4th century, too, Christians had begun participating in a great Roman holiday on December 25th, Natalis Invicti, the birthday of the Roman god of the sun. A Syrian Christian bishop later wrote about how December 25th came to be identified as Christ's birthday, too, for which there developed a special Christ's Mass or Christmas. It was the custom of the pagans to celebrate on December 25th the birthday of the sun, at which they kindled lights in token of festivity. In the solemnities and revelries, the Christians also took part. Accordingly, when the doctors of the church perceived that the Christians had a leaning to this festival, they took counsel and resolved that the true nativity should be solemnized on that day. St. Augustus and Pope Leo I both spoke out against Christians continuing to celebrate Natalis Invicti on December 25th, while a number of features of the Roman holiday were brought over to Christmas, including kindling lights, giving presents, and decorating houses with greenery. As other pagan peoples in Europe converted to Christianity in later centuries, their customs were incorporated into Christmas too, including the Christmas tree, mistletoe, holly, Yule logs, caroling, stockings, and Christmas cards. Most important for modern Unitarian Universalists to understand, though, may be the notion of incarnation that Christmas represents among mainstream Christians, which has been described by the Unitarian Universalist minister Philip Hewitt. He explains that while most of us Unitarian Universalists would be unwilling to accept that Jesus was fundamentally different from ourselves, we may rather easily see a difference in degree. Perhaps we could say that Jesus had a particular gift of the Spirit, or was a spirit person, meaning that he had a special capacity to help humanity rise to a higher level of love and wisdom. It can be called Christ's Spirit, as Buddhists might speak of Buddha Spirit, or Hindus of Krishna Spirit. Incarnation, an embodiment of those spiritual gifts in human life, is an important part of what Christians celebrate at Christmas. If we overlook this dimension, we may miss one of the most significant meanings of this winter holiday, for this dimension can be part of our own lives. As Unitarian minister Ralph Waldo Emerson preached in his 1838 Divinity School address at Harvard, Jesus Christ was true to what is in you and me. He saw that God incarnates himself in man and said in this jubilee of emotion, I am divine. Through me, God acts. Through me, speaks. Would you see God see me, or see thee, when thou thinkest as now I think. During our offertory this morning, we hopefully, if we don't have technical issues, we're going to see a video of performed of Veni Veni Emmanuel, performed by the Floriani Sacred Music Singers, and you should recognize the tune. The words are in Latin, so if your Latin is a little off, you may have trouble, but the tune should be familiar. And this is the way this would have been sung in the 8th century, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in my sermon. So I wanted to share that with you. So an offering to support the mission of this church will now be given and gratefully received.
There it goes.
All right. Well, unless you have no access to television or social media lately, you've probably been reminded hundreds of times that today falls between the high holy days of consumerism, Black Friday, and Cyber Monday. Days when we are urged not to ignore these seemingly endless bargains to be had on Amazon or other major retailers, for to do so would be imprudent and might even seem sinful to some. But in the liturgical calendar of most branches of our ancestral Christian faith, today is the first Sunday of Advent. It is the first of 4 Sundays that lead up to Christmas Day, when Christmas tide begins, continuing through the famous 12 days of Christmas until the Feast of the Epiphany on January 6th. Each Sunday of Advent is typically marked in churches and homes around the world by the lighting of 4 successive candles, which represent peace, hope, joy, and love. You still see this ritual in many older Unitarian Universalist churches, especially in New England, though most no longer are Christian in their worship focus. When our daughter was young, we had a family tradition of lighting the Advent candles on Sunday evenings at dinner time and talking about the theme of the week. The winter holidays are a perfect time to light candles for any reason, and this might be a ritual that you could find meaningful. A soft glow of candlelight just seems to evoke feelings that connect us to our ancient past. And this is especially so during the cold, dark nights around the winter solstice. The season of Advent is considered a time of preparation for what is to come. In fact, the origin of the word Advent is the Latin word adventus, which means coming. It is a time to prepare metaphorically to welcome the Christ child on Christmas morning, and a time to prepare for the coming kingdom of God, which for many Christian believers culminates with the return of Jesus in a second coming to earth. It is a time of expectation and celebration of incarnation, the idea that God could dwell in human form and experience what it is like to be human, including the pain of suffering and death. As early as the 6th century in Italy, we know that Advent was celebrated by 7 nights of Vesper services beginning December 17th, which featured chanting the 7 major antiphons, or great O's as they're sometimes called, chanting them to the tune of the hymn O Come, Emmanuel, which you heard during our offertory, was common in Europe at least as early as the 8th century, and chanting these antiphons during Advent is still popular in some high liturgical Catholic and Anglican churches today. Each antiphon, which is really a short prayer, has a similar structure, inviting an aspect of the holy to come into our lives. Each begins with one of 7 titles by which God or Jesus is referred to in the Hebrew and Christian scriptures. And in case your Latin is a bit rusty, I will share the text translated into English. Some of the words should sound familiar when we sing the carol, O Come, Emmanuel, in a few minutes. O wisdom, coming forth from the mouth of the Most High, reaching from one end to the other, mightily and sweetly ordering all things, come and teach us the way of prudence. O Adonai, and leader of the house of Israel, who appeared to Moses in the fire of the burning bush and gave him the law on Sinai, come and redeem us with an outstretched arm. O root of Jesse, standing as a sign among the peoples, before you kings will shut their mouths, to you the nations will make their prayer. Come and deliver us, and delay no longer. O key of David, and scepter of the house of Israel, you open and no one can shut, you shut and no one can open. Come and lead the prisoners from the prison house, those who dwell in darkness and the shadow of death. O morning star, splendor of light, eternal and sun of righteousness, come and enlighten those who dwell in darkness and the shadow of death. O King of the nations and their desire, the cornerstone making both one, come and save the human race which you fashioned from clay. O Emmanuel, our King and our lawgiver, the hope of the nations and their Savior, come and save us, O Lord our God. No matter what we believe about Jesus or the Christmas story, I don't think anyone could argue with the hope expressed in these short prayers for Advent. Come and teach us the way of prudence. Come and redeem us with an outstretched arm. Come and lead the prisoners from the prison house. Come and enlighten those who dwell in darkness and the shadow of death. Such appeals speak to the brokenness and suffering of the human condition, whether we place our faith in God to come and save us, or whether we believe it is up to us to save ourselves or something else. Whatever can save us and reconnect us with the holy, please come in. These days, most Unitarian Universalists no longer believe in the divine birth of Jesus or his resurrection, ascension, and future second coming. Many of us, though, still feel a strong connection to the traditions of Christmas, especially if we grew up in a more traditional Christian church. It can be a confusing season for some people. This is especially so when you consider the other holidays this time of year, such as Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and the winter solstice, each with its own stories and traditions. Sometimes in our earnest desire to be inclusive, we end up with a very strange worship service that tries to embrace elements of every holiday, and it just seems clumsy and unsatisfying. I remember one crazy worship service in a New England church when I was the worship associate, and by the time the service was over, in addition to the flaming chalice, the altar featured a Yule log with a lit candle, a menorah with all 8 candles lit, and an Advent wreath with 4 candles lit. It was a pretty sight, but with all those burning candles in close proximity to some very dry greenery, I was concerned the place would go up in flames. I like candlelight, but you can't overdo it. But I am grateful that our faith is open to celebrating whatever holidays appeal to us. And even when we Unitarian Universalists do try to focus on the Christmas holiday, sometimes, for example, having special carols and lesson service on Christmas Eve that would be familiar to any mainstream Christian church, it can be hard for many of us to know what to make of the language and the substance of this worship, beyond perhaps a sense of nostalgia for the religion of our childhood. It makes me ask the question, is there more to this season for us on a spiritual level, especially for those of us who have very different beliefs and may not even consider Christianity to be relevant to our own spiritual journey? As you can probably guess, my answer would be yes. I believe Advent offers a wealth of spiritual possibilities in our search for truth and meaning. And I think the reading this morning from Scotty McLennan provides a hint of where we might find it. What if, in this season of waiting and preparation, we focused on preparing our inner selves for the coming of the Spirit of life, the Christ Spirit, the great mystery, or whatever you want to call it? What if we let ourselves slow down and dwell for a time in incarnational wonder, pondering the truths revealed in the traditional stories? Could we reach the point where we too could say, like Emerson, that Jesus Christ was true to what is in you and me? In this season of darkening days, as Earth enters into the slumber of winter, and we await the return of light and the rebirth of the world, I think it is a fantastic time for this kind of spiritual reflection. A time to enter the quiet and listen to that still small voice within. The incarnational aspect of what that McClendon suggests is so important to understanding Advent is expressed in both the Christmas story and the idea of preparing for the coming kingdom of heaven. For many mainstream Christians, both are events which they believe describe God sending Jesus to earth to fix the problem of a sinful humanity run amok. But when Jesus spoke of the kingdom of heaven, I don't believe he was speaking about some future time that depended on God setting everything right. If you look closely at the teachings of Jesus, the kingdom of heaven was something to be lived into being by us on earth, here and now. It is a new way of life that is open to us when we are open to the idea of transformation. It is a way of living life with intention and generosity, loving our neighbors and resisting the greed and materialism of the world. In the original Greek of the New Testament, this idea is described by the word metanoia, which is often translated as repentance, but it literally means after mind. Metanoia is more than an acknowledgement of our sins and seeking forgiveness. It is a fundamental shift in how we perceive the world, or what we might call a change of heart. For the kingdom of heaven to come into being, we must experience a profound change of heart, a transformation on a deep spiritual level that is reflected in how we choose to live. Today, we might call the goal of such transformation within the human family creating the beloved community. But no matter what we call it, it is clear it is a vision of something still to come. Just look at the world we live in. It is not here yet, because it is too easy to give into selfishness and greed, and we do not allow ourselves to be transformed. Advent invites us to prepare to receive the Spirit in whatever form we imagine it into our own lives, and then use the power of our spiritual transformation to change the world. Just as it was in Jesus' time, there is still so much violence and oppression in the world. Our human family is still divided and willing to perpetuate evil against one another and the planet. But even so, when we look around us, there are plenty of examples of the tremendous good of which we are capable. And so we can have hope in the face of despair. And at this special time of year, despite all the emphasis on shopping and the stress we create for ourselves, there's something about this holiday spirit that reveals that we are capable of so much more. I have only a little experience of the Christmas season in other countries, but in America at least, it seems like people are just nicer to each other the closer we get to Christmas. The other day I was thinking about a scene near the end of the 1992 Peanuts special, It's Christmas Time Again, Charlie Brown, where Lucy is trying to force Linus out of a beanbag so she can sit in the chair. He reminds her that on Christmas Day she said, "Why do we have to be nice to each other only on Christmas? Why can't we be nice to each other every day?" Lucy then stomps off in a huff after being reminded. Just like Lucy, it seems we are too willing to revert to old, selfish behaviors as soon as the holidays are over. But what if we didn't? Over the past year, our nation has been torn by political differences and politicians who have been willing and eager to pander to the worst aspects of human nature. And here we go again with an incoming administration that will undoubtedly be emotionally exhausting at times. It has been very easy to fall into familiar patterns of anger and frustration when we see our values threatened. It has been very easy to grow impatient, even with friends and relatives on occasion. As I thought about Lucy's question, why can't we be nice to each other every day, I decided to reflect on this over the Advent season and commit to trying harder. Maybe some of you will join me. The coming year may be a real challenge, but let us light the candle of hope in our hearts for a better world. Transformation begins within. So, echoing those ancient Advent prayers, let us invite the Spirit of the Sacred to come within as love to dwell. And so, we wait. I invite you now to join in singing our closing hymn, number 225, O Come, Emmanuel. Please rise in body or spirit. Our closing words come from Megan Lloyd Joyner. At this time of year, we are invited, as weary people have done since the beginning of time, to kindle tiny lights and whisper secret music, to cradle our hopes like newborn children, to wonder what love looks like in practice, to await a new era with patience and preparation. This year, we might not feel like waiting is the best move. We may cry out in lament for lives and rights taken without account, joining our voices with all those who cry for justice and peace. This year, sitting quietly in the midst of chaos might feel close to impossible. Finding the magic in this season of waiting can be difficult for many of us, not just this year, but any year. For how does one sit quietly when life can be so unkind? What about the times when we wait for word of family in conflict zones, or of an injured friend, or a dreaded diagnosis? Times when we wait for illness to set in, or for a child who does not arrive. In times like these, we might find ourselves wishing that time would pass more quickly to get us to the other side of a nightmare. How do we live in that kind of waiting time? Advent challenges us not just to wait, but to wait actively, to do the work of preparing hearts and till the soil that awaits seeds of hope and love. Advent encourages us to be present in each moment of waiting. The moment of magic, the time we have been waiting for, is now. Not some future date, not the end of the Advent calendar, nor the hour that the days begin to lengthen again, or that long-awaited morning of presents. The mystery, the excitement, the beauty of this season are all found in the waiting time. And so we wait, allowing ourselves to be fully present to all that is happening in each moment. When we do, we join our lives and our breath and our hearts with all who are waiting, waiting for justice, waiting for peace, waiting for a world reborn.
As we extinguish our chalice to bring our service to a close, I ask you to recite the words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. It's time for our postlude. Be safe and be well.
I need some help getting a tree up and downstairs, and I'm gonna look for that man with the child.
And get the leaf on the wall before you can leave.
Okay.